Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great privilege to welcome you to the third Unifi Foundation Innovation Lecture. These lectures aim to help us learn a lot more about the future, which is something I'm sure everyone in this room would like to know more about. Before beginning, I would like to remind you that this annual event is held in honor of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, a man of great vision and foresight for the country. And so as a mark of respect, could I request you all to stand for the national anthem, and following which we will play a short clip about Dr. Kalam's ideas and thoughts.
Jana Gana Mana Adhinayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindhu Gujarat Maratha Dravid Utkal Banga Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga Uchchal Jaladhitaranga Tava Shubha Name Jage Tab Shubhayashish Mange Gahe Tab Jaya Gatha Janagara Mangalam Dayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He Jaya 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 He.
I am reminded of the dream of an Indian poet, Kaniyan Pungundranar, who articulated in 3000 years back in Tamil classic Purananur. He says, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir, which means I am a world citizen. Every citizen is my own kith and kin, he said 3000 years back. As we say in India, where there is righteousness in the heart, where there is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is harmony, there is an order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world.
And now, I'd like to call Mr. Sharad Reddy, founder of Unifi, to make his opening remarks.
Good evening, and wish you all a very warm welcome. A week ago, our research team, at the end of 2017, we do this typically at the beginning of the new year, we sat and we looked at all the companies that we had met or visited. On average, we have 9 analysts. On average, each analyst was meeting a little more than 2 companies per month. A total of about 200 companies we had met during 2017. And we had decided to make investments in 35 of them. So we asked ourselves, can we list down the top 3 things that we looked at in these companies? What made us make these decisions in favor of those investments? Almost unanimously, across these 30-odd companies, the top 3 things that came out were return on equity, earnings growth, and the quality of management, followed by things like business model, competitive advantage, technology, and so on. Interestingly, innovation didn't even feature. So obvious question was, we asked ourselves, all of us are working so hard on this. This evening for us is a big evening. We do this once a year, and we put a lot of effort to get it right. So the team was involved with the evening, and we asked ourselves, how come we are doing this about innovation, and yet innovation doesn't feature in the top 3 or the top 5 or the top 10 things that we are looking for in the companies in which we're actually investing our clients' savings? And here's what we realized. We were not looking for innovation anymore as a nice to have. We weren't looking for it anymore on shop floors. We weren't looking for it anymore in the factories that we visited. Innovation it seems, in the companies that we like, seems to have become part of the DNA. It's there in the small things that they do. It's there in the way they think about the small things, the way they pack products, the way they communicate messages to their stakeholders, the way they handle logistics. It seems to have become a way of life. And it seems to manifest itself invisibly, but finally in the numerics that appeal to people like us, the money guys, right? We are finally finding the value of all those innovations that are part of the DNA of these companies in the return on equity and the growth rates that we are looking for. In 2015, July, was when Dr. Kalam died. We instituted this lecture in his memory as a mark of respect for not just a great nationalist, but also a great innovator. It was the most logical thing to do for us. We are beneficiaries of innovation, and to do this once a year in recognition of the innovators who add value to us is what this evening is an opportunity for us to do. When we started in the first year, we invited his co-author, a man who was also in ISRO with him for long years, over 20 years, Padma Shri, Dr. Rajan, who co-authored 2 books with Dr. Kalam. The year after, we had a man from Stanford, a gentleman many of you met last year and heard him speak, Mr. Tony Seba. And we weren't prepared for the amount of the credit we received, the messages that we received from people like you who attended that evening, thanking us for the speaker and the quality of his inputs. So the challenge this year was the bar had been raised by Mr. Seba to a point where we had to at least meet, if not better it. So we said, okay, we'll make a beginning early. We started in March. We formed a group of 3, and we said we'll be able to find a speaker by July, and we will host it on Dr. Kalam's birthday, 15th of October. By August, we were desperate. We hadn't found our speaker. By August, we canceled our booking in the hotel. 15th of October was not going to happen. And we kept searching. By October, somebody ran into a clip on Solar Impulse, and it had a speech by Dr. Picard. And in those 3 minutes, we didn't have to consult. We were absolutely certain that we had found our speaker. So Dr. Picard is not just an exceptional adventurer in science, but an amazing communicator whose energy completely captivated us, and as I'm sure it will all of you this evening. To introduce him in some greater detail that he deserves, I'd like to call upon a very dear friend and esteemed colleague, Mr. Ravi Jethani. Thank you.
Achieving the first solar flight around the world. This is the story of 2 men. Bertrand Piccard, psychiatrist and explorer, and André Borschberg, engineer and entrepreneur. A team driven by a vision of the future and a passion for innovation. And the first airplane of perpetual endurance, able to fly day and night without fuel. Together with their partners, they wanted to show the power of pioneering spirit and clean technologies to bring solutions for a better world. Solar Impulse, the adventure showing that change is possible.
It's a bit the moment of truth, because simulate, you calculate, you imagine, but there is nothing like testing and doing it in real. We deeply believe that we can achieve impossible and incredible things with renewable energies, like flying around the world with no fuel. And if this works, of course, everybody can do it on the ground to make a cleaner world. And this can be your way to be with us in the plane.
And this was a scene in Abu Dhabi early this Monday.
Dans ce journal également,
In fact, it is now ultralight plane is powered only by the sun's rays.
Between March and July 2015, Bertrand Piccard and André Borschberg flew without a drop of fuel from Abu Dhabi to Oman, across the Arabian Sea to India, Myanmar, China, Japan, and over the Pacific to Hawaii.
How are you feeling after all that time? You broke a world record in terms of solo flight a few hours ago.
Resuming the round-the-world adventure in April 2016, Solar Impulse continued from Hawaii to California and New York, across the Atlantic to Spain, then Egypt, and made it back successfully to Abu Dhabi in July. Today, the challenge is no longer to conquer the moon. The challenge is to conquer quality of life on Earth. Our world desperately needs the implementation of clean technologies to reduce the energy consumption and the waste of natural resources.
Hotel India Bravo, turning final, 02 right.
This airplane was not built to carry passengers, but to carry a message. The world could reduce half of its CO2 emissions by replacing old polluting devices with new clean technologies, like those used on Solar Impulse.
I am inspired by your pioneering spirit.
You know, Mr. Secretary General, if an airplane like Solar Impulse can fly day and night without fuel, the world, of course, can be much cleaner.
Inspiring generations, promoting innovative solutions to the challenges of humanity, inventing a brighter future. Solar energy made it possible to fly many days and nights in a row without fuel, crossing 2 oceans and remaining airborne longer than any jet plane in history. 2016 has seen the completion of this pioneering adventure, flying 40,000 kilometers round the world without a single drop of fuel.
More than an achievement in the history of aviation, Solar Impulse has made an achievement in the history of energy. Let's take it further.
Like Solar Impulse, the clean tech revolution has taken off, presenting new ways of thinking and doing to achieve the impossible. And you can be a part of it.
Good evening to everyone. Thanks to Unifi Capital and Foundation, we're together now this evening to speak about innovation. But innovation in the way to achieve the impossible. And everybody thought in the beginning that Solar Impulse was impossible. And we did it. Which means, obviously, that the impossible is only in the mindset of the people. It's not in the reality. So how can we go in our dreams, in our projects, in our visions from something that seems impossible to the reality of something that becomes possible and available for humankind. When you go from the idea to the reality, do not try to work with people who are similar to you. Work with people who are completely different. And this is why I went to André at the end of the feasibility study and said, André, I would like to continue to work with you. We should become partners in this project and run this project together. Because André was exactly the opposite. He's a jet fighter pilot. I'm a balloonist. He's an engineer. I'm a psychiatrist. We cannot be more different. And this is what brings the creativity in a team. If you look for similar people, people who have the same ideas, people who behave like you, people who think like you, there will be no conflict, there will be friendship, but absolutely no creativity, no innovation. It's like 1 + 1 = 1. And you add as many people as you can who all think the same, it will always remain the same idea, the same way to do, the same solution, the same strategy. Useless. But if you work with people who are completely different, it makes 1 + 1 = 3. There was André with his experience, his vision of the world. There was me with my vision of the world and my ideas. And there was both of us. And both of us could create something that none of us separately could do. But for this, you really have to understand that the goal is not to fight to be the one who is right. You have to integrate all the differences and understand why the other one has another solution. The only thing I had was an artist view of what could be a solar-powered airplane with huge wings, enough solar cells to run the engines and store electricity in the batteries when we're flying during the day in order to fly during the night, reach the next sunrise, and continue cycle after cycle. How do you go from an artist vision to a reality? Through some difficult moments. We went through the moments a little bit like Dumbo. You remember Dumbo, the cartoon, with this elephant who had ears so big that they were trailing on the floor and everybody made fun of him. And all the one of you who have gone through a certain number of new projects know the feeling when you believe you can do something but nobody believes in you. Until Dumbo could deploy his ears and fly. And then he was the hero of the circus. And this is what we had to do. We had to deploy our huge wings. And because they were so big, we had enough solar cells. Because they were so light, we needed very little energy to stay airborne. And because of the huge aspect ratio, we had an airplane that was extremely energy efficient. But to understand the challenge of the construction, you have to imagine that the structure of the airplane had to be proportionally to the size 10 times lighter, 10 times, not 10%, 10 times lighter than the best competition glider in the world. That one way to explain this spirit of exploration that we so badly need for innovation is ballooning. Ballooning for me has never been a sport. It has always been a philosophy of life. Because when you are in a balloon, for a small flight or for going around the world, it's exactly the same. You are a prisoner of the wind. You are pushed by the wind in the direction of the wind at the speed of the wind toward the unknown. As long as you keep the same altitude, the wind will push you like a cork on a river. The only way to change something in a balloon is to change altitude. How do we change altitude? The first thing is to understand how the balloon works. In a balloon, if you want to change altitude, you have to drop ballast. You have to drop weight. So it can be empty bottles of propane. It can be reserves of food. It can be bags of sand. It can be water, if possible, over unpopulated areas. It's much better. But what I mean is that each time we drop a few kilos, we climb a few meters. And then we monitor the entire atmosphere on our logbook, from low level to high altitude. For each altitude, which direction is the GPS giving? And at the end, we have a prediction of the future. This is what we can do in our life if we want to take the control of our life again. Because we have a lot of ballast. What is our ballast in life? Certitudes, safety, paradigms, dogmas, all these things that we learn to keep in our hands. We don't learn to throw it overboard. No, and we believe that we are stronger if we have a lot of convictions. How wrong. We are not stronger, we are just heavier. So what is so interesting in life, if we want to become explorers and pioneers, is to take awareness of what we believe, take awareness of what we have learned, take awareness of what we have as habits, and throw it overboard. And throw it overboard. Because once we say, this is my answer, and you think, wow, what would happen if I would do the opposite? If I would drop my certitudes, if I would drop my convictions, and try the opposite? The opposite is not always better, of course, but it allows us to have all the solutions in between available. And instead of having just one direction available, we have thousands of directions. And then we can choose which one we want to keep. So we see how important it is to understand life as a way of pioneering, of innovation. It's not only what we do that is innovation, it's what we are. It's the way we are, it's the way we think, it's the way we act. This is how we managed to have Solar Impulse flying, the first airplane of perpetual endurance. A complete revolution in the way people were thinking about aviation and technology. Can you imagine how it feels to be alone in the cockpit, flying across an ocean, and you look at the sun, and you know that it's your only source of energy, and you watch your 4 electrical motors with big propellers turning, and there is no noise, there is no pollution, there is no fuel, and you can fly as long as you want. And suddenly you think, wow, I'm in the future. That's a film of science fiction. And not at all. It's not the future, it's the present. It's the reality of what the technologies of today allow us to do today. And then you understand that the rest of the world is in the past. The rest of the world is in the past with all devices, all technologies, all systems that are inefficient, that are poisonous, that make noise, that make pollution. And then you ask, why are we so demanding for the latest smartphone? And we are so laid back for everything that has to do with energy and protection of the environment. And this is finally the message of Solar Impulse. It's about innovation. It's about exploration, pioneering, and adventure. But as an example of what we can do today with clean energies and clean technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pekar. That was a very inspiring story you told us. I'm still scratching my head about what story I would like to tell, but it will take a while. We're open for questions now, so if you all do have questions, please, I think there are people walking around with mics. I have one question for you, though.
Yes.
It's a very stupid question, but that's also because I'm not an engineer like your friend Andre. You told us how you dropped ballast to raise altitude. How did you go back down?
You go back down by releasing some gas.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So each time you want to change something, you should not gain more, you should let go of.
Each way.
Each way. And this is something we have to ask to ourselves each time we're in a crisis. It's not something more we have to add. It's something less we have to give.
I think they've got chairs for us, so we can grab a seat. We can start with questions. There was a gentleman there. Can someone get a mic to the gentleman there? Are there mics passing around? If not, sir, would you want to stand up and ask a question?
Yes. Did you find any greater turbulence and clouding, and did it affect anything with your solar cells, just for general knowledge? Because I'm also a pilot, inquisitive to hear about that. Thank you.
It's true that the weather was a big limitation for Solar Impulse. Because, you know, we are like back in the beginning of history of aviation. The first airplane of the Wright brothers was single-seater. It was flying slow and only in good weather. And Solar Impulse is the beginning of this new cycle. So it's true that when we had too much turbulence, we couldn't fly. When there was too much wind, we couldn't take off or land. But it's just the beginning of something. We have shown that we could do it. And you know, I was told by the CEO of Airbus that in the beginning, all these engineers at Airbus were laughing, and they were saying, these guys, they will never build their Solar Impulse. And when we built it, they said, they will never fly. And when we flew, they were laughing and said they will crash. And when we did not crash, the same guys went to the top management and said, we have to work on electric airplane programs.
Wow, that's great.
And this is what they are doing now.
Thank you, sir.
So there will be airplanes with electric motors, with batteries, or with hydrogen flying with passengers before 10 years' time, because it is the normal evolution of things. But
Thank
first
you, sir.
you have to try.
Yeah, there was a gentleman there, actually. He's been waiting for a while. He's got a mic. Yeah, please, sir, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi. A very inspiring speech, truly, enriching. Wanted to know what was the best moment of your flight and what was the worst?
I would say for the project, the worst moments were on the ground. It was never in the air. The worst moments were the problems for funding. Sometimes we were 2 months away from bankruptcy. It was when we had technical problems, weather problems, administrative problems, overflight permission problems. This was a nightmare. In the air, it was fantastic. You imagine when you leave the coast of Hawaii, or when you leave the coast of Northern America, and you go for several days and several nights in your airplane across an ocean, and you hear the air traffic control who says, you are leaving our controlled airspace, have a good flight, good luck. And you are just going into the unknown. And this is a fantastic moment. This is the best moment. Because this is the moment where you understand that confidence is more important than courage. With courage, you have to fight against your fear. With confidence, you are just observing how many resources, potential, qualities, skills you have inside of you when you accept to go into the unknown, when you accept to lose what you have learned, when you accept to get out of your zone of comfort.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Elon Musk come together, then will it be a marriage made in heaven or it will be a recipe for disaster?
Well, Elon Musk is one of the patrons of Solar Impulse, and I love what he's doing. And he went through the same type of experience. You know, when he wanted to create SpaceX, He went to big space specialists, airplane constructors, rocket constructors, and he said, I would like to make a rocket where you can reuse the different stages. And people laughed at him. They said, who are you to do something like that? We are the big experts, you know nothing. And what's the result today? He's cheaper to send rockets to space than anybody else. So this is really something I admire. Elon Musk is really showing, like Solar Impulse, that you have to get out of the system. You have to work with people who are from another world in order to have the courage to have this creativity.
So you had a question? So what were the key obstacles or challenges in this whole journey, and how did you overcome that? And what kept you motivating toward the end of it, whether this will succeed or not? So what was that motivation, one motivation, which kept you going, and the various obstacles and challenges in the journey?
In general, in my life, the motivation is to have an exciting and useful life. Because if it's only exciting, very often it's selfish. And when it's only useful, very often it's boring. So I want to have both. I want to have it exciting and useful. I want to show that you can achieve things that nobody thought was possible, but give the signal to others that they can do the same. And especially today, because today the goal in exploration is not to go back on the moon, it has been done. The goal is to make a better quality of life on Earth. And if we want to succeed, we have to change the paradigms. We have to do it differently. And we have to see that if we have fight against poverty, we have a better economy. If we respect human rights, we have a better policy. If we have more education, we have a richer nation. If we have more medical research, we'll have better health and less cost for the public health system. Everywhere we have to see the win-win in making other people better and giving more access to a good quality of life. This is the challenge of today.
There's a lady there who had a question.
Yes.
Your talk was very, very inspiring. And I had heard about if it's difficult to tighten your sail because you can't change the winds. I could hear a psychiatrist behind the balloonist, and it was amazing. How did your family cope up with your life of risks? Are they partners in your journey, or are they concerned about being ballasts in your life?
The family, you can only do it with the family and not despite the family. And my wife is part of the project. She led the institutional communication. My children were always part of everything I was doing. It's very important to let the children identify themselves to what the parents are doing. I took my children to see the construction of the balloon. I took them for every attempt, took them for the landing, took them for the construction of Solar Impulse. They joined me for the different steps. So they knew why I was doing it, and they knew, the purpose. They were inside of it. So each time I was taking off, they were never telling me, Daddy, be careful. They were telling me, Daddy, go for it. We have to be pioneers in life. And when they wrote me that before my takeoff in Hawaii to cross the second part of the Pacific, I thought, wow, I think they're going to do well in life.
How long was the journey across the Pacific? How long was the journey across the Pacific? I was just curious. How many days did it take you?
The part from André, from Nagoya to Hawaii was 5 days. And the part I did from Hawaii to California was 3 days.
3 days, okay. There's a question in front.
What's the next altitude? How far are you going to go up further? We are going to keenly watch that. It's been a truly motivational, inspiring, and I think if you do make a book, because we have heard about a lot of motivational speakers who quote others' examples, but here is a life example of someone who has done it and proved it that you can keep going higher. So are you coming out with a book?
The book is written. It exists in French and German, but not yet in English. So if, or in other languages. So if here you have a publisher who would like to publish this book in India, Audrey and I, we would love it. Because
have a special meeting here after that.
Because this book is written about everything that the media have not told. It's about the moments of doubt, the moment of crisis, the moment of rivalry between Audrey and I, how we built this project, but how difficult it was to do it. And what's the message? The message is for all the people who want to achieve something great, you have to know that there will be steps that are difficult, but you have to know that you can go through and that you will have the resilience in order to succeed. So it's really a book about the psychology of adventure. So if you have a publisher, let's go for it.
Definitely.
Out there.
And
Yes, sir.
what's the next
Yes,
challenge
please,
that you're
that's
taking
it,
on?
yeah.
The next challenge, you're asking?
Yeah, because you believe in announcing it to the world.
Yeah, the next challenge is not to fly a third time around the world now. The next challenge is really to identify these 1,000 solutions that can protect the environment in a profitable way, bring together all the people, all the startups who have these solutions, and we offer for free, because we have our own partners that fund the Solar Impulse Foundation, we offer for free to all these companies assessment by experts, links with investors in order to grow, and then the promotion of the best solutions to the governments and the big corporations so they can really be implemented into the reality.
Yes, sir. My question to you is, you had a partner. Did you approach your partner, and when you approached him, did he exclaim, "Why me?" Because it is a very dangerous journey. And second is, your partner whom you chose, your thought never come to you to have picked someone younger.
So the partners, I got a huge experience in raising funds. I had to raise 170 million euros in order to have this project happen. And at the end, I knew in 30 seconds if a company would say yes or no, because it's a question of state of mind. My goal was never to have somebody paying for my dream. My goal was always to have a company who would find a personal advantage in getting into this project and become really a part of it. It was not a sponsor and my dream, it was a family of companies, of people, of institutions who pulled at the same rope to make something impossible happen. So at the end, it's not the question of what the company is producing, it's the question of how they produce it. What is their state of mind? And we only got really big pioneers into this project. And this is why usually we did not have people who are normal sponsors. You know, normal sponsors for football, for Formula One, for golf, because this is not a pioneering sponsoring. You know in advance you have this many people watching at this date, at this time in the day, and so on. Okay, you have visibility, but it does not stay in history. What we were offering is something that was uncertain, full of doubts, full of question marks, but we knew that if we would succeed, it would stay in history forever.
That's a question. Yes, sir.
Yes. My compliments for a very inspiring interface. I am the chairman of the largest listed lender to the poorest women in India, and we are the lowest cost funder of money to women. We provide $300, which they repay us in 1 year. My suggestion for next challenge is to build a bank without capital.
Have to think about it. You know, if I could answer like this, either it means I'm a genius or you are completely stupid. And so I cannot just answer like this. We have to think about it.
But you've got him thinking, more importantly, that it's possible. You had a question, sir. Yeah, the man in front? Yeah.
I don't think most people here know about your ancestry and your family lineage, but if you could tell them and then explain what it's like growing up in that sort of, having those parents, having those grandparents, is it the pressure sort of being born into your family? Is that a conductive thing? Would you feel like you were expected to do something like this? Or do you feel that, where did it come from? And also, just as a quick FYI, I had no idea. If any of you haven't gotten close to a French Presidential Medal of Honor, he's got one on over there.
Pressure, actually, did not come from my family. I got the inspiration from my family. I got the inspiration from all the explorers I met when I was a child. I was fortunate enough to meet big explorers, astronauts, divers, environmentalists, mountain climbers, and they really gave me the inspiration. But the pressure came from the outside. Even when I was 7 years old, people were telling me, okay, your grandfather did that, your father did that, what are you going to do? And I had no idea what I was going to do. I wanted to be an explorer, but how do you become an explorer? So finally, I went through my teenager period a little bit depressed because I had this huge energy inside of me that wanted to do something and I had no idea how to do it. And then I understood that I had to develop like a compass with a needle not showing the north, no, but showing the unknown, showing everything that had not been done before. And each time I had an opportunity in my life, I tried it. I believe that the only thing I have never tried is drug, because I think there is no benefit. But other things I tried. And it was good, it was not good. When I saw the first hang glider flying in Switzerland, I thought, I'm going to do that. And I tried, and I did aerobatic with hang gliders, and the first microlight, I flew the microlight, and then when I was flying hot air balloons, no, before I was flying hot air balloons, I was not a hot air balloon pilot. There's a friend of mine who said, we could cross the Atlantic together in a balloon. And instead of saying, no, I'm not a hot air balloon pilot, I said, yes, of course we do it. And it was a race, and we won the race. So then I said, why not around the world after the Atlantic? And all my life was like this, trying new things. And I became a medical doctor because I wanted to understand the mindset of human beings. And I became a psychiatrist, and I tried a lot of different type of medicine, and including hypnosis, just because I wanted to go further than what university was teaching me. And I always had this compass, and this allowed me to try a lot of things. And out of everything I tried, there are a couple of things I succeeded.
Did you have a question, ma'am? Yeah, go ahead.
In what way was your knowledge of psychiatry, most significant part of this knowledge of psychiatry, how did it help you with this dream of yours?
I think the main learning, the main experience I had with psychiatry and psychotherapy is this awareness that human beings are so much afraid of the unknown that they just want to stick to what they have done, what they have believed. So they put themselves on purpose into a prison just because they're afraid to be free. And if you manage to understand that, if you manage all the time to help people to have the confidence to change, then they will change. And hypnosis is a very good way to give the confidence to change, because you visualize in a hypnotic trance how it will be when the situation will be different. And you create this feeling of inner safety, inner comfort, inner resources, inner potential that gives you the taste of what it will be when it will be different. So you encourage people to change for the better. And this was for me the most beautiful experiences in psychotherapy, is when people come and say, I'm in a crisis, I'm desperate, but I'm afraid to change something. And you give them this confidence, and you help them to change. And this is when I understood that finally, if you're a therapist, you should not try to be the pilot of the therapy. You have to try to be the meteorologist, the weatherman of the therapy. So the patient comes and you don't know what he should do, but you just show him different altitudes, different ways of thinking, different ways to behave. And the patient will test how it will be. Different altitudes, different ways to do and to think. And then he comes back and says, okay, this was better, but not this. And then you try all the time to find with the patient what is the best altitude for him. And it's very, very gratifying. It's really something I love to do.
I think we have time for just one more question. Sir, I'll give it to you.
If it's the last one, it needs to be really good, huh?
No pressure.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, it's the best combination of a psychiatrist and an engineer. A bit of technical question. What batteries were you using in this aircraft? Is it a lithium battery? And the second question is, what material are you using as a solar panel material?
Batteries were lithium-ion batteries.
That's correct.
That were made in Korea, but our chemical partners, Solvay and Covestro, changed the polymer, improved the battery, and we got 30% improvement in the capacity of the battery. And the solar cells, they were monocrystalline silicium that was made by SunPower. It's an American company.
I think Tesla is using the same lithium-ion batteries, and probably they are also trying to change and coming out with a better material so the storage will be for a longer period.
You know, the storage is an interesting situation, interesting issue, because a lot of people will say we cannot have wind or solar energy in our society because of the intermittence of the production, and we don't know how to store. It's wrong. We know how to store, but we don't do it. We can store in batteries. We can store in compressed air. We can store in hydrogen by hydrolyzing water and use it in a fuel cell. You can store energy in height. You pump water to a dam, and when you need the energy, you let the water fall down on the turbine. You can store energy in heat. You can store energy in cold. Today, we could be absolutely independent from the grid. And when you see a company like ABB, I visited their microgrid systems in India. It's absolutely fascinating what you can do with a wind turbine, with some solar cells, with some batteries, in order to give access to energy to a village that is off the grid. And there is in the world 1.2 billion people who are off the grid. They have no access to electricity. And of course, you cannot pull more cables everywhere, but you can give access to localized production, localized consumption. And this is a way to make small communities much richer. You give access to energy, to a job, you give access to education, you give access to technology, and you have a bottom-up creation of wealth. So finally, what we did on Solar Impulse is just the demonstration of what has to be done on Earth if we want to fight poverty and if we want to have a better world.
Well, you did manage to end on a great question which had a great answer. So thank you so much, sir. I will ask Mr. Maran to give a vote of thanks now to Dr. Picard.
I'm sure most of you had participated in our previous events also, right? This is our third innovation lecture. How many of you remember the second innovation lecture? When did it happen? The day. November 2016. The day of demonetization. So please don't check your mobile phone, WhatsApp. Again, Modi ji will come and make some announcement today. So Only one point I kept looking at. About 2-3 years back, when we were discussing about the green, the environment, India signing Paris Climate Agreement, were there investable universe in this space? So it was a big journey. We spent 2 years looking at this space. And to our own surprise, we could get not a lot, but a handful of good investable companies. And they were all green, and they were all profitable. So we strongly believe that no government can make a world greener by a regulatory push or a tax incentive. The only way to make a world greener is to bring efficiency to the processes, which helps us to conserve less. And in the meanwhile, if we turn profitable, that is sustainable. And it's a great initiative running World Alliance for Efficient Solutions, bringing that connect between ideas to investors and business. And thank you so much. It's so inspiring. Thank you so much. Thanks for each one of you for taking the time, and we sincerely appreciate it. Please join us for dinner. Thank you.